Welcome to Survive the Storm with Chief Meteorologist Kevin Leidy and Meteorologist Aaron Bohl. Now here's your KSPR weather team.
Hello and welcome to Survive the Storm. I'm Chief Meteorologist Kevin Leidy.
And I'm Meteorologist Aaron Bohl. Coming up during this 30-minute special, we hope to bring you life-saving information that will help you prepare for the upcoming storm season.
And we take a look back at the Joplin tornado and find out just what is being done to help protect you if you're in one of those big box stores like a Lowe's or a Home Depot.
And we'll take a look back at the Branson flooding from last year and how things could have been much worse.
And we take a look at the new dual polarity radar technology and explain just how it's going to help us in predicting severe weather.
And what kind of new shelters are being built to keep you safe in case a big tornado is headed your way? It's all coming up on Survive the Storm.
By now, we've all seen the devastating images that an EF5 tornado brought to Joplin just 10 months ago. 160 people dead. But among all the stories of tragedy, there are so many more stories of miraculous survival.
Meet Reuben Carter, a former gas station clerk who survived the Joplin tornado along with 24 others by riding it out in the gas station beer cooler.
The beginning of the day was just like any other day. Up until after the second siren went off, people were still coming in and buying, beer, cigarettes, whatever, just like it was another day. Once the power went out, everybody was kind of milling around the front of the store. I got everybody away from the windows and back toward the back of the store against the back wall right next to the door to the beer cooler.
Everybody get down, low on the ground.
We saw like part of the canopy over the gas pumps blow off. All the glass in the front of the store blew out. And at that point it was like, yeah, that's it. We need to go somewhere. When I got everybody inside, I was the last person in. And when I reached out, I had to lean out. And I looked around the corner of the building, or the corner of the cooler toward the front of the building where the windows were, and I saw the entire front of the store lift off the ground.
I think we're gonna do it.
I mean, it was literally the loudest thing I've ever heard in my life. You could feel the suction pulling on us, trying to pull us out, and the roof was actually on my back. There were a few people praying.
Jesus, 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 Heavenly Father.
It seemed like it went on forever. Crouching down, thinking we're gonna die, we're gonna get hit by something, it's gonna hurt if I get hit by, a piece of debris. It may be the last thing I feel. The guy who was actually filming the video, one of his friends said, "I love you, man."
I love everyone. I love everyone, man. Yeah, what about you guys? We're gonna be okay. I love you.
And so everybody was like, I love you, I love you, I love you. And it was just kind of one of those things where you wanted people to know that they were cared about if they were going to die. And then, of course, the wind started to die down, and we realized that we were, on the tail end of it, and that, we might actually pull through it.
Is everyone okay below me? Right here, I'm okay. All right, I'm trying not to lay on someone.
Now, initially, the first thing after we realized that it was over was just overwhelming relief in being alive. There was nothing left of the store except for the little tiny space that was left in the cooler. The roof had split open and the back wall had fallen over at an angle, and so there was a wide open space, and so we decided that would be the best way to get out. I climbed out. Debris as far as the eye could see. There was not a single thing left standing anywhere in any direction. It literally looked like an atom bomb had gone off. Multiple places across the horizon, you could just see, smoke billowing up everywhere. Everybody's car was gone. Just by looking at the building, it's a miracle. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. We shouldn't have survived that. As far as I'm concerned, the best outcome is we all made it out alive, and I have 24 new family members. I'm going to be friends with them for the rest of my life.
Joplin has a population of nearly 50,000 people, and 7,000 homes were destroyed by the tornado. Now think about that, 7,000 homes, but only 160 people perished. Obviously, we'd love for that number to be zero, but with a tornado of that magnitude going through a city of that size, one would think that the death toll would have been much higher. It just goes to show that having a plan of action can help save your life.
Have you ever wondered how hail forms? Well, here's a brief overview. You've got a strong thunderstorm and a strong updraft of air bringing rain droplets above the freezing layer. The rain droplet will freeze into a little ice particle, and then it's surrounded by a bunch of other rain droplets which will freeze on that ice particle, allowing it to grow bigger and bigger and bigger. But it's going to be suspended in the thunderstorm because of that strong updraft of air. Eventually it gets so big that it has no choice but to just fall to the ground, and that's when you get hail.
The federal government has opened up their pocketbooks for what are called community emergency shelters. Now, cities like Fairgrove, Nixa, West Plains, and Springfield have all got approval to build these shelters. And KSPR's Lee Moody shows us what they look like and asks the question, can they withstand an EF5 tornado?
The training room at the O'Reilly Events Center on the Drury campus is designed for students and athletes to work on their bodies.
It's designed to withstand just tremendous loads.
But look closer and you'll see it's also designed to protect bodies. It doubles as a tornado shelter that can hold about 400 people.
When an event happens, you have, whatever you're doing, you set that aside and we're there for the, to protect people.
Drury used a $250,000 FEMA grant to build the shelter in 2010. To qualify for that grant, this room had to be built to very exacting FEMA guidelines. One of FEMA's stipulations for the shelters, the walls have to be concrete and a foot thick, so a 2x4 missile going 100 miles per hour couldn't break through. What also cannot penetrate here? Any kind of phone service.
You have to be able to withstand 250 mile per hour wind loads. The roof has to be constructed in such a way that it can't blow off.
Vice President of Campus Operations Pete Radecki says the shelter also has to have adequate ventilation and power backup systems that are as sturdy as the building.
So there's a shaft here that's probably about 18-20 feet deep.
This ventilation shaft is sheathed in concrete so strong winds and debris can't penetrate it. It's a similar setup for the backup generator that sits in a concrete hut and can provide emergency lights for the whole campus.
The best use or value of those type of buildings is a multi-use, such as a gymnasium at a school or something.
Springfield Greene County Emergency Management Director Ryan Nichols says in the wake of the Joplin tornado, a number of Ozark schools are applying for FEMA grants to build these shelters.
We'll see several starting to pop up in Greene County over the next several years. There's 3 in Springfield, 1 in Fairgrove, 1 in Republic that I know of for sure, and then I think there's others that have submitted applications.
Like Drury's training room, those shelters will mostly be used for other purposes, like a cafeteria or a gymnasium. But Radecki says the rare times the shelters will shelter the public is their most important function.
To us, it's an important aspect, not only the facility, but to help out our community with protection.
Fairgrove has filled out its documents for its shelter. Now they're just waiting for approval from FEMA. But Nixa has already gotten 2 shelters approved. One of them will be going in at Inman Intermediate School, the other at Matthews Elementary.
Coming up on Survive the Storm. Brand new storm radar technology is now in use. How's it helping us track severe weather? We'll show you. Also, Branson saw some of the worst flooding in decades along Lake Taneycomo. Could it have actually been worse? We asked the question. It's all coming up on Survive the Storm. But first, did you know after the Joplin tornado, Freeman Hospital treated 1,700 patients in 18 hours and gave out nearly 17,000 tetanus shots? Survive the Storm returns after this. Welcome back to Survive the Storm. Here's meteorologist Aaron Bull.
Flooding is the #1 weather killer here in the Ozarks. Branson is particularly prone to flooding because so much runoff flows into Table Rock Lake. When lake levels are high, it's just a matter of time until the floodgates are open and Lake Taneycomo floods.
Wipe the house out. We can't rebuild it.
4 years ago, Larry Hooper's house on Lake Taneycomo flooded. No one in the community thought a flood of this magnitude would happen again in their lifetime. But just 3 years later, last April, it happened again, only worse. 8 more feet of water than in 2008.
We redid the dock a little bit so it doesn't cut loose and go down the river.
Hooper has now been told he can't rebuild unless he raises the house by 20 feet. FEMA has rezoned the land along Lake Taneycomo. It went from a floodplain to a floodway.
We're basically in the spillway of the dam. And I don't think the county should have ever allowed that to be built in.
The floods last year were bad, but they could have been much worse. The flooding wasn't bad enough for the Corps to open these auxiliary gates at Table Rock Dam. Odds are against ever having to use those gates, but there's always a chance.
I guess in theory there is, because that's why they built it. But that would be bad for all of us.
If both sets of gates had to be open all the way, the flood level at Taneycomo would have been 10 times what it was last year. That would leave the landing and even Highway 65 underwater. It's highly unlikely to happen, but not impossible.
They just need to prepare to move out and move out quickly.
Barron said the county tries to give people 3 hours of warning before the floodgates are open, but there's no guarantee. Hooper said when his family had to find higher ground the second time, that it would be the last.
I would have wished that we'd had more information on the area. If we'd have known this, we probably wouldn't have bought it here.
Hooper and his wife are living in a temporary home in Branson right now, and they are still waiting on FEMA to buy their land. To give you an idea of just how much worse the floods could be, last year they opened all 10 of the floodgates only 6 inches. They could be opened a total of 44 inches.
Hydrometeors, correlation coefficient, differential phase. Okay, by now you're saying, what is this guy talking about? Well, believe it or not, those are fancy names for new dual polarity radar technology that's going to help us track severe and winter weather like we've never been able to before.
If you've ever flown out of the Springfield-Branson National Airport, you've surely seen it. What some call the big white golf ball, well, that golf ball is actually the Springfield NexRad radar, which for over 20 years has been providing Southwest Missouri with comprehensive radar data. Now, that radar has been given a big upgrade. Andy Boxall from the Springfield National Weather Service explains.
Well, this is certainly the most significant upgrade that's taken place to the Weather Service's Doppler radar network since the initial fielding of the Doppler radar system back on nearly 20 years ago now.
Before, the radar sent out a beam in the horizontal, giving us essentially a 2D view of what it hit. Dual pol now sends an additional beam in the vertical,
which gives us a much better idea of the size and the shape of the things that radar energy is bouncing off of.
So, what exactly will that help us with?
Better estimation of what kind of precipitation is falling at any given location, whether it's rain, whether it's snow, whether it's a wintry mix. A much better ability to estimate the amount of rainfall, much better hint as to whether that thunderstorm is producing large hail or not. And we will be able to give folks hopefully a little bit of a better indication once that tornado is on the ground and is causing damage.
And most recently, it helped us with the Branson tornado.
Nothing terribly remarkable that's showing up in the reflectivity field, just a lot of heavy rain. And if we switch over to the velocity, we do see a very, very tight signature that's occurring right over the city of Branson. But if we start to switch over and take a look at some of our dual pol fields, these much higher values are areas of heavy rain. We see what are likely the debris that was being lofted into the air by that tornado. Warnings will still come out with about the same lead time as before, but what this allows us to do is go from Doppler radar indicated tornado to being able to say in our warnings, hey, we're pretty sure that this is on the ground causing damage. That causes people to react in a much more favorable way. They're much more apt to take protective action to protect their lives.
This graphic here shows all of the radars across the United States. Only 40 of them, the ones in green, have been upgraded to dual polarity status. Another 80, the ones here in yellow, still have to get upgraded. The good news for us, though, Springfield, Kansas City, and St. Louis are all dual pol ready, just in time for storm season.
It is good for everyone to have an action plan before a tornado hits. First off, you need a shelter or a place of refuge to hunker down during the tornado. And here are a couple items to help you survive the storm. Researchers found out after the Alabama tornadoes last spring that the majority of the fatalities came from head injuries. From that, they're encouraging people to wear bike helmets or football helmets or even motorcycle helmets to protect their head from injury, and for babies to put them in a car seat, strap them down so if the tornado picks them up, it'll give them a little extra protection. Secondly, people need shoes because if the tornado hits your house, there's going to be a lot of debris all over, broken glass, and also other things you can cut yourself on in case you're barefoot or in flip-flops or sandals. Also, it's good to have a whistle. That will help first responders to locate you if you're buried in rubble or injured and you need help. For a complete list, go to our website at kspr.com.
Coming up on Survive the Storm, you frequently shop in them. Big box stores like Lowe's or Home Depot. But how safe are you if a tornado hits? We do some investigating. And is your family ready if a tornado hits your home? We'll show you what you need to have if the worst scenario comes true. But first, did you know in 2011, 1,700 tornadoes touched down in the U.S.? That ranks as the second highest number of tornadoes in any given year since records began. The current record is 1,817, set back in 2004. Survive the Storm returns after this.